r/AskReddit by Reddit. Wedding shop workers, what are your worst bridezilla stories? Oh, I work as a wedding server. Awesome job, I love it. As soon as someone says bridezilla, this one story where the manager of our hotel had to shut down the wedding halfway through comes to mind. This was the bridezilla of all the bridezillas I've ever seen. There were a lot of little things leading up that were casual bridezilla until the wedding took a sharp turn. At one point she accused the wedding server staff of stealing her veil. Then the manager found it in her room and also showed her the card swipes to her room, proving only she had been in the room that day. About 20 minutes later she was screaming at some poor front desk employee accusing her of stealing her wedding boots. Manager intervened, and after a long talk the photographer told them he had a photo of the boots on the staircase of the church and asked if she had worn them since. When she said no, she told our place it was our job to have picked them up and made sure she had them. The church was not related to our place at all. Then shortly after she started opening the wedding gifts frantically inside the ballroom and screaming at anyone and everyone, guests included, saying someone stole her wedding certificate. After that, our manager gathered the wedding staff and told us to take off our uniform jackets, empty them in front of him, then to clock out and go home. Which we all did. None of us stole anything, and we heard next day the maid of honor had the certificate, and after we left the wedding was shut down completely. Room left as is for the bride to come back to in the morning. I used to be a bridal consultant at a retail store, which basically means I help couples scan things onto their registry, although the training for it just meant I knew how to use the scanner and the computer, and my actual job had nothing to do with bridal shopping. This one couple came in to start a new registry, which quickly turned into only things the bride wanted. Anything the groom wanted to put down on the registry was deemed as childish, stupid, ugly, unpractical, never going to be used. I was cringing during the entire appointment. She kept asking for my input/opinion on everything, and I felt so bad for this guy. His bride-to-be seemed so selfish and entitled. Couldn't believe the fact that he was soon to be married to this woman. The poor man just wanted a waffle maker. Who doesn't want waffles? Restaurant manager story. The wedding dinner was on a Sunday, so instead of the usual one manager on, we had the banquet coordinator come on for a few hours to make sure everyone was happy. They were a rich couple and we wanted more of their business. Their menu was $119 a person, and they had $80 bottles of red on the table. So guests start to arrive and obviously start ordering drinks. At this point bride and mother see this and approach the head server. They tell her that everyone except the head table are to get separate bills, that they are not planning on paying for anything but what's at the head table. Server finds us, tells us what's happening, and banquet manager heads over to figure out what's going on. Seems that the bride and mother decided that their guests should have to pay, and they didn't want to be the bad guys, so they expected us to have to tell the guests. They also decided that, since they are their guests at their wedding, they will drink and eat what they are eating. We tell the people that have already arrived. Half of them laugh thinking it's a joke. Once we told them the truth, they laughed and left. My job became to stay at the front and tell all the people arriving for the dinner that they are going to be responsible for their whole bill and what the costs were. Final guest count was 20 people. Most left once I told them what the costs were. We ended up threatening legal action against them since they signed the banquet sheet stating that they agreed on 60 dinners. Best part was they paid the full 60 dinners plus gratuity and only had 20 people there because they wanted to save some money. Other end of the spectrum was a Muslim wedding. We had to even cover the wine and glass storage in their wedding dinner room. The parents who were paying the bill felt, since it's their money, it's their type of wedding. Except the bride and groom showed up the day before, left a credit card, and told us to have an open bar ready for any of their guests. A lot of people went upstairs to the bathroom that day, which oddly enough was right beside the bar. Baker here. I wasn't present for the freakout, but it was my fault. So, a few months back, I had a bride who wanted a navy to white ombre cake, something like this, made with white sponge. Now, dark, rich colors like that in white cake ducking suck. They always taste terrible because they have so much gel coloring in them to get them right. However, you can do it if they are willing to have the dark layers be chocolate. Navy is especially easy, thanks to blue velvet. I tell her this when we are planning. But I want white cake. I tell her I'll do all but the last few in white sponge. She agrees, and I make the damn thing and drop it off. I come back to pick up the staging stuff the next day, only to find my whole ducking cake sitting there. Apparently when they cut into the thing and fed it to each other, she freaked out over it being chocolate and refused to let any of the cake be served. Apparently she forgot that she had agreed to have the bottom tier have 2 layers of blue velvet, so she threw a massive ducking temper tantrum over the cake being wrong and how I ruined her wedding, then locked herself in the bridal suite if she wouldn't have been a little psychopath and let the staff cut the cake like they should have. She would have seen that 90% of the cake was white sponge like she wanted. How is her freak out your fault? Yeah, I guess fault is the wrong word. Reason might be better. Usually I'll stay and explain/remind them of what they ordered. Planning a wedding is stressful, and you can forget things easily, and usually a quick reminder of what they actually ordered will do the trick and prevent any confusion or disappointment. I had 2 weddings that day though, so I just delivered/assembled it and left. She also was screaming at the wedding planner about me ruining her day, since she was the one that suggested me, since we've worked together before. Wedding coordinator here. I found the moms are usually worse than the brides. I worked a wedding this past summer with a ridiculous momzilla. During the rehearsal, she handed me the box of decorations and said, "Don't you dare make this look tacky." On the day of the wedding, she arrived and came up to ask me where the wedding programs were. I told her there weren't any programs in any of the boxes, and she proceeded to cuss me out for losing them and then decided that I stole them. She also asked that we build a water station for the guests, but instructed that she didn't want the guests to have access to it until after the ceremony. It was 90 degrees that day and the ceremony was outside, so that did not go over well. And when the guests complained that they were thirsty and we weren't letting them go to the water station, she told them how horrible we were and made a big deal out of opening the water station early, like she was the hero. Thank God they only booked the venue for the ceremony, so she was only my problem for about an hour. The next day my boss handed me an email the momzilla sent her. She wrote about how I lost the programs, but then in the same sentence, said she found the programs in her hotel room later that night, and made a comment about how I should have gone to her hotel and gotten them. She also complained about how I wouldn't give her guests water, and how the photographer was the worst person she's ever worked with. She actually wrote, "Don't bother remembering her name. She'll never work in his town again," about the photographer. Her letter ended with her complimenting the venue space and saying something along the lines of, "I think I would be a great addition to your team of event coordinators. Let me know when I can start." This woman was blatantly trying to take my job. The worst part is that my boss actually hired her. Needless to say, I quit working at that venue. This isn't the worst story I have, but it's one of the most memorable. I worked as a wedding planner and coordinator, and one bride stands out to me because she was so inconsistent with all the vendors. She was a complete sweetheart to me during the planning phase, and I never saw any of the crazy until the day of the wedding. It was honestly like a Jekyll/Hyde moment. She wanted a big wedding, around 300 people, and spent a lot of money on the venue and food, and wanted the best for everything. No complaints about paying for it either. Never asked for discounts or anything like that. And since she wanted the best and seemed to have a really large budget, I referred her to a popular baker for the cake. I'll let her handle the logistics for the cake, since I've worked with this baker before and never had any problems. I figured they would do the standard cake tasting, pick a design with a baker, and I would see a gorgeous masterpiece on the day of the wedding. Well, that didn't really work out. For some reason she didn't want to tell the baker that it was for a wedding. I'm guessing she read that you can save money by ordering a regular cake because some vendors will automatically add an extra charge if it's for a wedding. By the way, this is true to some extent, but the extra charge truly is there for a reason. Whenever something is for a wedding, the vendor puts in much more care, stresses about the timing, execution, etc. way more than usual, and oftentimes will go all out and use premium materials or add upgrades. Not all of us are just adding extra charges for no reason. Anyways, she decided she didn't want to pay for a wedding cake, so she told the baker it was for a birthday party. The baker asked how many people the cake would need to serve, and she said around 50. She also didn't want to pay the delivery fee, so she had her sister pick up the cake on the morning of the wedding and bring it to the event. At this point it's important to mention that we live in Texas and this is a summer wedding. By the time the cake got to the venue, about 6 hours after it was picked up from the bakery, it didn't look all that great anymore. Some of the decorations had melted, the cake got a little banged up in the car ride, and there was icing on the inside of the box. The entire cake was sagging on one side. It was also way too small for a wedding of her size. I saw it, and it looked like a complete disaster. But at this point we are about an hour away from the start of the wedding, and there's no possible way to fix this. The bride comes into the reception room with her makeup all done, and sees the cake and completely flips out. Screaming, crying, throwing things, collapsing on the floor. Complete meltdown. Threatens to cancel the whole wedding if we can't fix it. We try to calm her down as much as we can and grab the makeup artist before she leaves and ask if she can help fix the bride's makeup, which is a mess now. The bride sees herself in the mirror and has another meltdown because she ruined her hair and makeup and now wants to have the whole thing redone. After she gets everything done to perfection again, we are about an hour behind schedule. I'll let the guests come inside the reception room to wait because it seemed cruel to force everyone to sit outside in 100-degree heat. But when she saw that everyone was inside, she had another meltdown. She spent the entire wedding sulking with a scowl on her face and refused to take any pictures with people. Her new husband kept coming over to hug her and try to cheer her up, and she would either yell at him or give him the silent treatment. Most of the guests left very early because the atmosphere felt so uncomfortable. So pretty much a waste of the $200,000 budget for a lavish wedding, all because she wanted to save a couple $100 on the cake. Thank you for watching Reddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more r/AskReddit videos. Share your stories in the comments section below.